Now, Pike goes on from page 18 on to page 19. He says, life and misfortune, isolation, abandonment, poverty are battlefields. And they have their heroes. Heroes obscure, but sometimes greater than those who become illustrious. And this is so true. The Mason should struggle in the same manner. This isn't a piece of cakewalk. Sometimes Masonry is a struggle. Sometimes it's important to recognize we're in a war, and it's tough going. When the going gets tough, the tough get going, to use a corny little saying, but it's a true saying. And we should prepare for the battle and engage in the battle with the same bravery of those who are in abandonment, isolation, misfortune, and poverty. These come to nations as well as to men, he says. He should meet them foot to foot, even in the darkness, and protest against the national wrongs and follies, against usurpation and the first inroads of that hydra, tyranny. We fight tyranny. We fight for the people's freedom. And make no mistake about it, sometimes it's a battle because you have to get rid of the people's prejudice because they think we are the bad guys. Ironic as all get out, isn't it? When you try to stand up for the good, be good, and do good, it's astonishing, but you will be fought against. Isn't that crazy? Interesting. There is no more sovereign eloquence, he says, than the truth in indignation. It is more difficult for a people to keep than to gain their freedom. Acquiring freedom is just the first step. Then you have to keep it. Because if you don't keep it, and you don't ensure that other people have their freedom, the tyrants will come, and with the hammer and the mace, they will destroy the freedom, and they'll enslave us again. All you have to do is read history. That's why he keeps going back and forth to the Roman history as examples of that. If we don't read history, it's going to happen to us again because we aren't going to know what to do and what not to do. That is what Pike is getting at here. It is important to achieve greater intellectual knowledge. That is critical to being good Masons. The protests of truth are always needed. Continually, the right must protect against the fact. There is, in fact, eternity in the right. The Mason should be the priest and soldier of that right. He's calling us to battle. If his country should be robbed of her liberty, he should still not despair. The protest of the right against the fact persists forever. The robbery of a people never becomes prescriptive. Reclamation of its rights is barred by no length of time. In other words, if we lose our freedoms, we take our lives to get those freedoms back. There is no set time that it's supposed to be done in. We always strive for the right, for the freedoms. That's what he's saying here. And then he gives some more examples. A people may endure military usurpation, and subjugated states kneel to states and wear the yoke while under the stress of necessity. But when the necessity disappears, if the people is fit to be free, the submerged country will float to the surface and reappear, and tyranny will be adjudged by history to have murdered its victims. That's powerful stuff. Whatever occurs, he says, we should have faith in the justice and the overruling wisdom of God. And hope for the future. We live in hope because we are acting in and for the right. And yes, as a matter of fact, it's very inconvenient. It does take a lot of time, and in most times and cases, it is a completely thankless job but we do it anyway. That's what Pike's getting at. That's what makes a Freemason a Freemason. We will fight for the right. Yeah, it's one thing to be willing to die for your freedoms. That's impressive. That's noble. But are we willing to live for them? Are we willing to do what it takes to ensure we continue free? Dying for a cause is one thing. Living for it for years is something else. Got to close my thing there. So, God makes visible to man His will in events. I think that's interesting. An obscure text written in a mysterious language, men make their translations of it forthwith, hasty, incorrect, full of faults, omissions, and misreadings. We see so short a way along the arc of the great circle. In other words, our perspective is limited. We don't have the big picture. I don't know if we even can get the big picture in this life, but we strive to. We attempt to. There's no point in giving up and saying, oh, well, you know, eat, drink, and be merry, for tomorrow we die. No. We live for the right. We do what we hope is right because we base our actions, we base our philosophy on the equilibrium of the wisdom, justice, and power of Almighty God Himself. We try to emulate heaven's record. That's what we're attempting to do here. Therefore, we can do the right, and it can succeed. This is really a great rah-rah read. This is a coach's halftime report to his team. Come on, you guys, you can do this. This is great stuff, man. Page 19. It's fun reading. He has such a poetic way. His mind is so full of information, and he's trying to put it in a coherent, logical, all-encompassing view. It's absolutely impressive, man. This is worth reading and rereading and rereading and rereading and comprehending. Just because you don't get it the first time, don't despair. Read it again and again and again. I do, and I love it more every time I read it. It's sensational stuff. And from each translation, a party is born, and from each misreading, a faction is also born. Each party believes or pretends that it has the only truth there is, the only true text as well, and each faction believes or pretends that it alone possesses the light. And so what we have is a whole bunch of people claiming to have the truth and damning and killing everybody else. That's not brotherhood. That also, interestingly, is what Freemasonry tries to fight against. They have their prejudices and false teachings and false acquisitions of false knowledge that they love to say is the truth, and then they kill everyone who doesn't believe in their way. That's not Freemasonry. That's not love. That's not brotherhood. Everyone has a limited perspective. No one has the final, total comprehension of the truth. That's not possible in this life. It's fascinating, isn't it? We are doggone near done. I'm going to stop this video now. It's 9 minutes, and I'll wrap this chapter up on the Entered Apprentice. It's absolutely one of the greatest chapters I've ever read. It's awesome. And there's a lot more great stuff to come, man.